Oh, we're back. Ay. All right. So, I just don't know if there's a way to do this that makes more sense. I think we can make because this should be a function. Okay, so if so if we fail to find something here, then we do or maybe I don't need that. If we fail to find something, how would this work? How would this work? Work. I think we should have something like this. Like that. This is so complicated. Not sure if I'm overcomplicating it or not. Basically, I'm doing something like we iterate the big iterate to here, And then I have a smaller iterate that just iterates through this. It's the test bounds. And the test bounds will iterate until it finds an error. And then when it finds the error, we will add everything that we have iterated through successfully. You know, this does need to be an X and or 2. Because it needs to be able to test to the right and then up. Should always do the secondary search. And the length should always be size minus b3i.y. Now this is set. And then here we're gonna say tested voxels. Here. Or should that be here? Or tested voxels.count. We are gonna say confirmed voxels. Add tested voxels I. Or should it be a hash set, actually? both of them. And then here we're gonna say if tested voxels dot contains v3. No, it's not just v3i. It's this is why it's so hard, because yeah. And we continue. Holy shit. We need to do this. This is gonna be super confusing. Oh, okay. Once we start, we'll say if confirmed bounds, but this doesn't help. If z does not equal 0, or do we say, maybe we handle it here. If y equals secondary length dot y, or that fails, then we'll say confirmed bounds are set to so here we do need to set confirmed bounds here should be set to yeah, okay. Now let's undo that. Then we do confirmed bounds dot set. But there's an actual. Oh, okay. Like, yeah. Holy shit, this is so confusing. I might already be confused about what I'm doing there. Or should it be a vector 3i? Oh. Iterating through. I shouldn't have started like this. We should have started with X. Maybe there's still time to change. I'm gonna change this to Y. This is X already. Just gonna be a lot easier to actually figure out. Okay, so we're iterating through the X. As we start the X, we don't have any confirmed bounds, really. This is too hard. We start somewhere, and from that start, we start testing we start at x, y, z, 0, and then we start testing to the right in the x. And in order to do that, we set a current length and I don't want to set confirmed bounds here, I think. We start here. What we do want to do is we want to say that's how it's gonna be. I don't know if it should be 0 or 1. It shouldn't be that hard, but I don't know why it is. Like, all we have to do is create temporary bound. How much of this should be done here, right? Yeah. Hello, Jeffrey. Legends of Terrestria is a turn-based tactics RPG that we're working on. Unfortunately, does not run right now. Oh my god, this is so hard. Oh, why is it so complicated? Oh my god. It can be really boring to watch. My streams are terrible. Holy shit. Okay. I don't know if I have enough brain power to deal with this today. We'll see. Holy shit. Confirmed bounds get set to this. Test bounds. I feel like this should be maybe temp v3i plus vector 3 int dot 1. Man. I hate Scratch. I've never used Scratch. Working on a game for school, Scratch is such a handicap. I can barely do anything. Yeah, well, it's literally meant for kids. That's the entire reason Scratch exists. Any language that's higher level than C# is basically just worse. Holy shit. It's just so hard. I can't wrap my head around everything here. Holy shit. I'm trying to create a mesh, kind of. And I'm trying to use something called greedy meshing. So, basically... I have a 3-dimensional matrix of voxels, and I have to... And I have a selection, a 3-dimensional selection. And I'm trying to, from that selection, I'm trying to create a mesh. And so what I have to do is we have to iterate through the mesh in an axis. So right now I'm iterating in the... I'm going through the x-axis first here. So... we have to iterate with a 3D nested for loop. And then it has this as well. And then as we start, we need to start another iteration that then goes like this until it iterates up. And then it needs to iterate here until it finds either the end, and then it just continues up to here, or until it fails because there's no selection there. And it's actually like so easy, but holy fuck. Because here, because we need to store so many things. Here we need to start another loop. And that needs to be like a local position. Oh, Jono. So we start a local position here, and then we iterate that up to here. And then as we find the edge, I need to like store this as a confirmed quad. And then as we go up, this is now a test quad, or rather this was a test quad here. And then as we go up here, this test quad gets confirmed into a true quad. And then up here we start another test quad. And then if that one fails, then we have to discard this. Or no, we don't discard it. We finalize it and send it out as a finalized quad. And then we have to resize the shape of the for loop to this, so that this is now the new maximum loop size. And then, because it failed here, we then go back to our position here. And then we test here until we collide with something, or we find the new edge. And then we need to go up here. Here you helped Shopgob avoid bankruptcy. Well, we don't know yet. Maybe. This is my YouTube. But stream delay is 10 times worse on YouTube. So it takes forever to respond to messages there. Ooh. But hopefully it stays fixed. And it's not that complicated, but it is. It is. But I think basically we should do something like this and just get rid of everything there, and then we handle it in the inner loop instead. Like, what is all of this stuff? Like, expand quad. Delay on Twitch is worse? No, it's not. Delay on YouTube is like 30 seconds. On Twitch, it's like 2. This is too much of a brain twister. I almost feel like I should just delete this. I see what you say on YouTube like 1 to 2 seconds earlier though. Alright. We can set confirmed bounds here. Just to get the starting position. And then here we just set confirmed bounds. This isn't confirmed down. This should be test bounds. Test bounds dot set. Oh my god. Do I need a boolean? Yes. I have the boolean already. So every time you know what? We can simplify it a bit, I think. We don't have to continue this loop. We can end it. That would make it so much easier, I think. And I don't know why I'm not. Okay, so yeah, every time here we're gonna say full expanding. No. It's called expand quad equals false. And then here if temp vix equals secondary length -1 or tile is not selected, then test bounds gets set to this. But we're gonna say if expand quad is false, what do we do in there then? Test bounds should be set to this no matter what. And then if expand quad we need another boolean called bool break inner. Break inner loop equals false. Break inner loop equals false. And then here, if expand quad is true, then we need to say break inner loop equals true. And then here, if expand quad is false, because this is the first one, right? So that's where we just check this here first. And this, like, this can't fail, really. Because if one of these was to be empty, then the initial one would just go here, and then we would just set this to be the new for loop length. And then we just start going up here until it happens again. And then we cancel after we confirm the bounds we already have. So we start the new loop with a new secondary length here that we set here. And then if we see if the tile is selected. If the tile is not selected, or if the current x equals length minus 1, then if expand quad is false, then we set the test bounds to the current size. And then if tile is not selected, that means we've run into a tile that is not selected, which means we have run into a wall before we hit the end of the length. And if that happens, then we set secondary length x to our current position, which then shortens the length of the loop. And then we're gonna set expand quad equals true. And then here, so the next time this happens, then we want to say confirmed bounds quads dot add confirmed bounds break inner loop true break, and then we can say tested voxels dot add selection area dot min vec3 plus v3i plus temp v3i. And that actually means that down here, we should do this. And then we don't need to break here. We can just say if break inner loop, then we break. And all of these things, I think, we can just get rid of. Something like that. Which also means that here we have to say if secondary length -1 or tile selected or confirmed voxels dot contains this doesn't work. If the confirmed voxels contain the voxel that we enter, that means it's already been confirmed. Yes. And there are cases where that can happen. Now the next issue is how do we solve the problem of what happens if it looks like this? Then we do a test. And then we go up here. Or no, specifically, what happens if we're here? And then we test. And then we go up here. Yeah, it needs specific code to save it if it goes out of bounds in the Y. But that's kind of easy, I think. We can add something here that says if temp 3vi.y equals secondary length dot y minus 1. Then we can just say quads.add confirm the bounds. No, no, no. The confirmed bounds aren't set anywhere. Here we have to say confirmed bounds equal test bounds. No, confirmed bounds dot set confirmed bounds dot minvec3 test bounds dot size. Then we can add confirmed bounds and break inner loop immediately. We also need to set that there, I think. But I don't really like this. I don't think this is right. I'll be right back. Oh boy. Now the issue here is that do they need to be in a certain direction? Like, do I need to kind of flip them? Because once I have all the quads, now maybe it's fine. Because what we're gonna have to do is, once we have the quads, Like we have a quad there, a quad there, quad here, quad here. And then if somebody, if a point is here, then what we have to do is we have to check against every quad. So we're gonna have to check this one. It's got an XYZ of like 5. Let's just say that 5 is, it's 5 in everything. Then this one is something up here. This is like 7, and this is like 2. And then in this axis, it's like 1. So then we have to check. We have to check in the x-axis. And then we have to check, is this greater than, because we're trying to see if we're inside. So are we greater than this quad in the x-axis? And the x-axis is, like I said, it's like 1. So that's true. And then we check the other axis, z and y. And this falls within here. So this is gonna be true. That's 1 true in x. And then we have to do the same thing here against this one. But we're checking this one in the x-axis. So we have to check, like, is this position has to be greater than both x min and x max of the quad. And then in this case, it's not, right? So this is false. And same thing here. This is, we're less than x min and x max. So this is also false. False. That's 1 positive here in the x. And then we have to check x in the other direction, which you can see that'll be 1 green here. Red, red, red. And then you do this for, you have to check, unless you put in a system to like determine that a quad is in a certain direction or something. Then you have to do all of the checks against all of the quads. So then we check the y, and it's going to be the same thing there. We're going to get 1 green here, 1 green here. Then the rest is red. And we don't have a z here, but you have to do the same in z. And then you'll get a green in z here and in z here, or whatever. And then what you do is you simply say, if any of the sides have an even amount of positive hits, meaning green lines, then this boundary check fails. Because that means that we are outside of a polygon. Because that would imply that this looks like this. Right? Because you can see now, if you assume that these are quads here, we would have to make 2 additional checks here, which would result in 2 more green lines. Which is 3, which is an odd number, which means that we are within the bounds. But if the point was here, then we'd only have 2 green lines, and that means we're outside, and that's a failure. So that's what we have to do. We need to generate these quads, and then we check against the rooms to tell if we're in a room. Holy fucking moly. I literally forgot what just happened. Oh yeah, I was just yapping. Holy shit. It's like something like this. I think it's pretty close. But then what? It's being added to quads. Add quads to room. Now, here's the question. Can I, in some manner, make this be modular? I don't think so. Man, it's so fucky. Because the thing is, like, maybe I can. Maybe. Because here's the thing. I don't need to have, like, an outer mesh. Like, what I mean is, if you have the cube, at least I don't think so. Let's say you have the cube. Normally, you would have a mesh that looks like this, right? However, do I need this? I'm not so sure I need this. I might just need to have this. So we're gonna create, like, quads at tile positions, and it only needs to be the quads in the X, the Y, and the Z. And they only need to be one side. Because the entire point of this is to just get the tile position. So the quads should only contain tile positions, which means that this quad or this vertex represents a whole tile. And then that means that every time we need to check if, like, a tile belongs to this mesh, then whether that tile is on the back side of a house or the front side of a house, it just needs to check against the quad's tile position. Therefore, because the thing about that is that otherwise I would have to, like, check, like, back and forward. Do I still need to do that? Yeah. Well, I guess we do. Or do we? Maybe I do. Well, let me think. Oh, this is so complicated. No, because No, we still do need to check. But do I just check like in... How do I check? Because what you need to do is, if you have a selection, you need to iterate through the whole thing in slices, right? But the only tiles we should be adding are the tiles that in this axis has a neighbor that isn't selected or outside of the bounds. Those are the only ones that are valid. Because right now, I'm creating... Like, if this was just a cube, I'm creating quads the size of the cube all the way in, all along its depth. And that's not what we're doing. But the question is... Because, for example, if we make a wall here, you could have a wall that looks like this. And then it looks like this. Now, is it okay for me to make a quad out of this? And then also a quad out of this? Yes. And this would be a wall anyway, so I wouldn't be able to stand here. Because what I'm thinking is that we can check both in both axes, right? Even though we're only iterating through in this direction, like we're only iterating the x in a positive direction. Is it okay for me to generate quads independently here? Like, for example, if I said to the code that when we are creating the quad, It's valid if it is... If there is no selection to the left or to the right, that would make this whole middle section a valid quad. And I think maybe that's fine, because the reality is this is not a valid room anyway, so it doesn't matter for the solution. Because a room would need to look like it would need to have a minimum of one space there. In order to be a valid room, it would need something like this. But even so, like, this would be selected. The inner part is also selected. So here, in this scenario, if we iterate through here, and we check this, if it's either or in any direction, then we'll get a quad here. We'll get a quad here. No, we won't get a quad here. And we'll get a quad here. And that's it, right? Now here's an actual issue. What if it looks like this? Then we'll get a quad that looks like this. And then later on we'll get a quad that looks like this. Do you see the problem? Because I see the problem there. So what if we're standing here now, and we do a check to see if we're inside? It would check. It would need to check against this, and it would need to check against this, and then here we would get 2 true, and here we would get 1 true. So that doesn't work anymore. But this could be semi-solved. Because we know that there's an edge case here, with literally an edge or a corner. So we could say something like, yeah, if the bound is exactly, like if either the min or the max of the bounds is the same as the position we're checking, then we can only find one of those. And then that way, this would be false. Assuming there's not another weird quirk with that. Which, yeah, there could be. I think. Like, what if we make a shape that looks like this? Then we put this here. And then we do this. Then this would return true. And then we have a bunch of other corners here that would also return true. Or they would return false because, you know. How do I solve this fucking issue then? One solution could be to check position to size -1. That way, They can't really overlap, I think. Because then it would be like this. And then this would be here. This wall you would never be able to be up against. Like, you would never count as being inside if you're along this wall, which might also suck. Could also be done in reverse. So it's this direction. But now it feels so hacky. Oh, I'm gonna throw up, man. Return from work, it's hot in here, scent smell. I'm wearing a hoodie. But it is like 24 degrees inside. Yeah, I don't really know how to solve this, I'll be honest. Also, I'm a little tired. I'm trying to make myself as sick as possible before Wednesday, because I need to take some blood tests, and I've been eating pizza and ice cream every single day. I actually think the ice cream isn't that big of a deal. Why do you want to fail your blood tests? Because I'm taking a thyroid test, and I don't want to fail the thyroid test. However, I'm also hopefully taking an autoimmune test, because when you take a thyroid test to check if you have hypothyroidism, they also take an antibody check to see if it is something called Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, which means it's hypothyroidism caused by an autoimmune response, which means your immune system attacking your own body. And last time when I took my test and I got diagnosed with hypothyroidism, my antibody values were 30, and the rules that they have, the limitations for like what counts as being autoimmune or not, is 30. So it counted as me not having autoimmune issues. So I'm trying to fuck it up as much as possible, so that if they do take a test, it might actually show something, and maybe that'll allow them to maybe do some more tests. Yeah, because I do think I have like more systemic autoimmune issues that like, because my mom has rheumatoid arthritis, which is also an autoimmune illness. She also has had hypothyroidism, or she had hyperthyroidism, but they fixed that with radiation treatment. Fixed means they killed her thyroid, and now she has to take medication for the rest of her life. But that was also most likely like the same reason why she has rheumatoid arthritis. And now I have similar problems, and we also have a family friend who has rheumatoid arthritis as well, and for her that leads to like severe fatigue. And fatigue is not an uncommon symptom of an autoimmune illness. And I think I have that. It's bad. It's really bad. But the reality is that even if I do find out that that's the case, if there is like some autoimmune stuff, which I think there is, then the solution is just doing what I should be doing anyway, which is just sticking to a carnivore diet. But it might help. It might help get your head in the game to like actually have a diagnosis. Your doctor's taking their time. No, it's not that they're slow, it's that I haven't gone, and there's like no point. Like, the thing about healthcare, especially when you have autoimmune issues, is that you can't get a diagnosis because like it has to be like extreme, like you like literally can see that you have like autoimmune flare-ups, like your face is like bright red and you're like, or your joints are swollen, shit like that. If you don't have that and you have more like systemic autoimmune issues that are just like latent, more like, you basically can't get that diagnosed. You just have to assume that you have that and just kind of like act on that. And I mean, it's partially because they don't really take it seriously, but it's also because it's just hard to actually test and diagnose. So it's kind of fucked. But basically, I just have to stop eating grains. But it's not just grains, it's like everything. That's why I should go on a proper carnivore diet again, but it's just such a pain in the ass. You can tell that you're not doing it properly when you're not losing weight, and I haven't been losing weight for like 2 years. So I have not been managing to get back on it at all. Man, I don't know how to fix this. Like this solution here, I think kind of fixes it, but it's weird. Is this greedy meshing? Well, I'm not exactly doing meshing anymore. I mean, I kind of am. But what I'm doing is... Holy shit, I'm so tired. What I'm doing is... We're working with bounds instead. So I've made my own struct called a vector 6, which is a 3-dimensional rect. I think there's one called like a... I don't know what it's called. I think there might be one called bounds actually. But I have a vector 6, which is a min and a size. So what I'm doing is, instead of creating like an actual mesh with vertices, I am just creating a vector 6. So if we do this check here, I just turn this into a vector 6, and I just put that in a list. And then that's just this is one of the quads. Yeah. And the reason for that is because it's easier to put into GPU memory, because if it's going to be a mesh of vertices, it actually has to be a buffer of vertices, and then you also need a buffer of triangles. And the triangles don't contain vertex data, they contain vertex indices that point to the other buffer. And I just think it's more complicated to implement. And it just gives you the same result. But then the issue here is that the quad position is in tile space, right? So we've created this quad. This is actually a quad that has 1 in size, which means that it's literally a wall. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create structure areas, which means a room, which means that by definition, at minimum, it should contain empty spaces, like an empty space between each wall, right? So that's what I was checking here, right? Like dark red here means inside, and the red is the edge of the selection. So if I'm trying to create a room here, the issue is that here, right? We have to check all of these. You know how this works. You have to check the position. This is the position against all of the quads in each direction. So you have to check in negative x, positive x, negative y, positive y, and then you check against all of these quads. Because we don't have like a definition or a separation that this quad is like in this axis or something. No, it's just a quad. So if we're checking in negative x, then the position has to have a greater x than both min x and max x on this quad. And then we need to get an odd amount of intersections in each direction. That means that we are within the polygon. But then here the issue is this, that I just realized that, okay, but what if we're just standing in here and the room is shaped like this? Because as we're going through it, we will get a quad here. Because we're creating quads in tiles that have a neighbor in that axis that's empty. So here... Well, actually... Oh, wait, actually, doesn't this solve itself then? Yeah, this won't be a quad. Oh, maybe there's no problem. Because there's nothing empty here. Both of these are filled spaces. So it will be this is a quad, and this is a quad. Okay. Yeah, no, yeah, that works. Okay, there's no problem. We solved it. We solved it. Oh, Jesus. Oh yeah, hold on. Everyone should nap more often. I didn't actually take a nap. I was just kind of... I ate 3 sandwiches and some ice cream. And then when I came back, I felt even worse. Ready for... Sugar crash? Well, it can't have been a crash, because I had just consumed the sugar. Let's see if Kibbles is awake on his own. I think the answer to that is probably no. Where did I put my phone? Oh! Alright. So hopefully we can figure something out here. Now what I want to do next, and I think we can do that, is we need to break this out, because I don't want to repeat this code. So we have to figure out how to turn this into a method that's modular for the axes, right? But that's way beyond me today. Way beyond. And we have a meeting in 20 minutes, so we'll probably not do anything more today. We'll continue playing some more Zero Parades for Spies tonight. Just give it another chance, see if it picks up. But I was really bored playing it yesterday, I'll be honest. It's not nearly as good as Disco Elysium. Like, Disco Elysium has a bit of that issue where you end up just walking around and you're just talking to people and it just gets kind of annoying, but... Because it's like, not really related much. but it's not nearly as much, and it's not nearly as like unrelated either. I feel like. Well, in Zero Parades, you're just like yapping. But yeah, I think this is actually like kind of solved. So we just need to figure out the rest next. And we also need to create a save system for this. But that shouldn't be that big of a deal. We just need to create a new room flat buffer class. And buildings as well, because the rooms need to belong to a building. But it's going to be more manual. And later on, what I do want to do is I want it to actually be a tool. I want it to be a room designation tool that lets you select which building it should be, which room it should be, and also roof. But for now, we can see if we can manage without it showing visibly, because I would like it to show like an area. That's like, yep, this is where this room is. This is where this is. And it would be like colored. So you can tell. But I don't really want to do that. It's gonna take a bunch of time. But yeah. Until next time. Thanks for hanging. Have a good day. Bye-bye.